there is a turning point in the disciples' life. God speaking his favor upon them, Jesus blessing them, is making them into what they were made to be. What has been the emotional state of the disciples? If you just think back with me over the last few chapters, would one or two of you just kind of like say what emotional state you think the disciples were largely in that marked them? Disappointment, okay. What else? Fear. Who said fear? Somebody says fear. What else? Despair. Did somebody say despair? Yeah, okay. When I think back on it, those are the exact words I kind of come to my mind, particularly the emotion of fear, but all these other things. You can think of Cleopas and Mary on their journey. They're despairing on their way back to Emmaus. You can think of Thomas, doubting, wondering. I don't know that I'll buy into this whole Jesus resurrection sort of stuff. But the dominant kind of thing seems to have been fear. You can think about Jesus being arrested in the garden, and what Peter does is he takes out his sword. What's going on? He cuts Malchus's ear off. He's kind of living out of this fear. Disciples react in fear and they get scattered. Peter reacts in fear and denies Jesus, right? Fear of this little servant girl even. What's going to happen to me? Last week, Jesus actually spoke specifically to their fear. Maybe you remember that by showing them his hands and his feet, but also speaking about how this was God's plan, that the servant of the Lord should suffer and then rise again from the dead. But what happens at the blessing of God over his disciples, even when Jesus is being lifted up, when he is literally being taken away from their physical presence, is not fear, but that fear is turned into joy and into worship. They return even to the very place of Christ's death, Jerusalem. They go back to Jerusalem. And they return to the very place where that death was plotted. It seems like the temple and the religious leaders there. And it says they return with rejoicing. And I kind of just think we should all be asking, like, how and why and what in the world? If you think back with me in the Gospel of John, how they have this upper room discourse, Jesus tells them, hey, it's going to be better for you that I leave. But I think every single one of them doubted that very, very much. And I think that because I kind of doubt that. I kind of hear that and I'm like, how is this possible? How is it actually better that Jesus is taken from them and they receive the Spirit? So I have a hard time believing that. But what I'm suggesting to you here is that in this passage, there is a turning point in the disciples' life. God speaking his favor upon them, Jesus blessing them, is making them into what they were made to be. And it totally changes all this other dynamic. Changes them completely.